morning and afternoon to all of you who have joined us today. I am Rashika and I'm glad to be hosting this workshop with Anna today. As designers, we know how important it is to create effective and engaging user experiences, and that's where rapid prototyping comes into play. With the help of Anna today, we are gonna introduce ourselves to the world of rapid prototyping and how powerful and efficient method it can be for refining our design concepts in the initial stages of design. Anna is a lead product designer with 15 plus years of experience, an educator and a mentor. She helps companies build data-driven, human-centered solutions and drive growth. She educates companies about UX's importance and helps set up and lead end-to-end UX processes. Anna, a very warm welcome to you to today's workshop, and thank you for doing this with us today. So the stage is all yours.
Thank you for having me today, and thanks to everyone for joining today. I know it's weekend, but yeah, great to see a lot of people spending their time educating themselves. And yeah, I'm really excited to start this one. So yeah, let me, I think, go ahead and share. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so we are going to talk today about rapid prototyping. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about my experience and then diving into details of why we're doing prototyping, what are the benefits, how we should do it, how to choose the fidelity, and just to get to know this stage of the process much better. And let me know if you have any questions. You can drop your questions into the chat, and later after the actual presentation, I can just open the chat, see what questions you have, and we can go to the discussion. Okay, before jumping into the actual topic today, so a lot of things were covered here. And something to add to here is that my experience is mostly in startups. So I have been first designer for a number of startups, and I really enjoyed that experience. Also, I wanted to mention that I have background in social work and business administration, which helps me a lot. And you might think that, okay, how does it correlate to UX design? But it does, believe me. And anything that you have experience with before is very much related to UX. And this is invaluable experience that you can apply in day-to-day UX designer life. So coming back to our topic today, rapid prototyping. So I believe if you just Google rapid prototyping, you won't find anything on UX design very soon, at least at the first page, I believe. The reason for that is that rapid prototyping is coming to us from manufacturing world. So companies started with 3D printers coming into the world. A lot of manufacturing companies started to do testings and saving a lot of monies. And this is where the term comes from and applied in the UX later. Okay, so I believe you have heard a lot about prototyping. So, and there can be a lot of confusion about, okay, so sketching, prototyping, wireframing, so, and everything becomes a mess in our head sometimes. But let's just clear that up and see what we have here. I'm sorry. Okay, so seems like it is a bit slow. Sorry for that. Overall, prototyping is a process of learning. I would say if someone asked me, okay, can you explain it in 2 words? I would say, yeah, it's a process of learning, and then later applying all your learnings to next iterations. That's the main goal. It's also a way to validate hypotheses and also come up with the best solution of the problems that we have already discovered. So Tim Brown has a good saying, so let me just bring it quickly to you. So they slow us down to speed us up. Sometimes you might get requirements that you need something high fidelity as soon as possible. You sit down, you design in high fidelity, and then you try to cover everything, and then spend a lot of time and money, and then engineers are going to build this. And then at the very end, it comes out that no one is used that, and no one understands it. And you did something and you spend a lot of time and money on something that is not working at all. So that's why by taking the time to prototype our ideas, we avoid costly mistakes such as becoming too complex too early and sticking with a weak idea for too long. Let's come up with the goals. I think I have mentioned some of them, but again, so let's just define it and say that this is a way to quickly test and validate design ideas. And when I'm saying validate the ideas, I not only mean users, of course, users at the first place, but I also mean that prototyping, especially rapid prototyping, is a great way to collaborate inside your teams, with your teammates, with your stakeholders, because it's worth seeing something on a paper or something digital, especially clickable, rather than just to spend a lot of hours saying what a great idea you have. When it is put into actions and when it is shown, it becomes a really good background for collaboration. Okay. Another great thing, so I would absolutely recommend you to go to the talk of Tom Chi and watch the full talk on rapid prototyping, and it's great. And I try to put this code because this is really describes the prototyping. So it's maximize the rate of learning by minimizing the time to try ideas. And I think it's brilliant, and it's how we can describe the prototyping. Okay, so you could say, okay, prototyping is you can see prototyping in a lot of processes, and I'll come to this a bit later. But what is the difference between prototyping and rapid prototyping? I would say sometimes there is no, because companies are iterating very quickly. But the main difference between prototyping and rapid prototyping is the speed, and also the speed of iteration, the speed of validation. So prototyping is most beneficial when it's done rapidly. Again, if we come back to some examples, I would say, again, you can do it prototyping for weeks, right? So you can sit down and say, okay, let's prototype everything, let's prototype all the details, and you spend a lot of time on that, and then go and validate this, which is pretty good, which is better than nothing and not validation at all. But on the other hand, so it's much better to do smaller chunks and to do smaller iterations and iterate quickly. I believe you're familiar with some processes in UX design and, of course, design thinking process, as you might see. So we have this prototyping and testing here. So it usually happens there. When we start this prototyping, when we have these ideas and we get through the processes before, the stages before, this is very important. I mean, in no way you can skip the research saying, okay, I'll prototype and validate. This might work in some cases, but this is not the right approach. So I highly encourage you to not to skip the research and then definition of the problem before doing the prototypes. And when you come to prototyping stage, usually you have already ideated and come up with a lot of ideas, and this is a great place to see, okay, which idea works and which ideas do not. For the design sprint, it's pretty the same. I mean, we have the stage, and if you're not familiar with design sprint, so it's a 5-day sprint, and you spend a lot of time on defining the problem, sketching, deciding, and everything is done by diverse team members, and not only product team. And we have this building this prototype stage where again we are doing rapid prototyping because we're limited with time and we have to come up with something to test with users. Okay, so let's go to rapid prototyping. Okay, so just as I said, so it's just done quickly, and this is what will bring us a lot of value. It's the same statement. So validating ideas and hypotheses. Rapid prototyping is a part of the process. So it's a process inside a process. It's a series of quick iterations and feedback sessions. So imagine you are creating, you're sketching even on a paper. So you're sketching your idea, and then you're getting feedback. Then you iterate on that, and then again. So this is a repeating cycle of creating and getting feedback and applying this feedback. And actually, what we want with rapid prototyping is the product simulation. So we really want to see whether the idea that we have in mind, we should simulate the idea and the product and see how it works. And multiple iterations, as I mentioned, are generated throughout the short period of time. Okay, so as far as we go, so we touched a little bit on what it is for and what are the goals, but also I really want you to know that we need to have some work done before we start prototyping. And of course, the first thing is to be sure that you understand your problem and your user needs. So this means, as I mentioned before, do not skip research. Research will bring you the data that you're going to use during your prototyping stage. The second one is defining the goals of your prototype, because if you don't have a real goal, if you don't have this, the really good defined goal, then it's really hard to understand what you are prototyping and what you are testing. And when you get the feedback, you want to be sure how you have to apply this feedback to next iteration. So it's very important to understand the goal of the prototype. So what are you going to build and why, and what you want to test? Setting up the scope comes from the goal. So it's better to understand early that you can prototype everything. So it would be very time consuming, and it would take a lot of effort from the team, and it won't be rapid prototyping anymore. So it at all. So we have to set up the scope, and yeah, as I said before, so do not try to prototype everything. Just be clear with the goals and set up the scope. Okay, so from the goals to the scope, what do we want to do? It's sometimes pretty hard to understand what exactly you want to test, because it's almost always everything, right? So we need to test everything, right? But let's just say that let's build just enough to learn what we need to learn. And of course, with the product, we would have a lot of prioritizations. What are the priorities? What are we building first? What are we testing first? But let's just agree that let's build enough to start testing and then build on that. Great. I guess we can go to the process, which is, as I said, define, design, review. And it is a repetitive process. So after every review, then you can refine your prototypes and then go and design and review again. But if we try to go with steps, it would be build what you are trying to test with the goals in mind, with the scope in mind, test it with users, stakeholders, and your team. Again, so you can imagine you're just trying to prototype an idea that you have and you want an initial feedback from your stakeholders or from your team, or even go a step back. So you have an idea and you want to present it to your stakeholder and to your team. And it's much better to have something prototyped that you can show. So we are going to talk about fidelities later, but again, something that you can start a discussion on. Gather feedback, analyze that feedback, iterate it to reflect on your prototypes next, and repeat everything again and again. Okay, so I have a question, here. I assume perfectionism would be the first enemy of rapid prototyping. What should we keep focus on when doing rapid prototyping, and what potential distractors should we not pay attention to? Okay, I think that's a great question. Let me go through the continue, and I believe I am going to cover this. If not, we'll come back to this question later. Okay. It's a very important. The next thing, as I said, so we have the right research. We have the research results. We have data, but on the other hand, when you have a prototype, maybe it's great, maybe it's perfect, but if we do not test it with the right target, in the right environment, with a good test scenario and tasks, and if we do not analyze it in the right way, then we are not going to get the right results. So they are all connected, and just doing the prototyping right is not enough. So I would say that prototyping and testing and setting up the test right is crucial to get the feedback and to iterate later. Okay, and this is a golden rule. As long as you collected some data, the test was a success. And sometimes we might come with very negative feedback, and we might come with the idea that doesn't work. And of course, this is not the happiest situation and scenario, but just learning that something doesn't work is also learning and very important, because imagine if you haven't tested this idea, spend a lot of time and effort building it and figuring that out when it's already launched. Is really very, very painful, and much painful than just discovering it on prototyping phase when you have done, just imagine mid fidelity, and you can change everything, you can iterate. Okay, perfect. We'll come to benefits. Let's see what are the benefits, though I think I might cover some of them already, but let's go one by one and see what are the benefits of rapid prototyping. Mentioned before, learning fast. So rapid prototyping enables us to quickly test and validate assumptions, hypotheses. By testing these assumptions and hypotheses early and often, we can learn more about our user needs, our users' behaviors, and incorporate these insights into our designs. And also, as I mentioned, discover some things that does not work at all. Here is my favorite one, is experimentation and creativity. It's really very painful when you have a lot of ideas and then you really want to go and experiment with all of them. I'm not saying the rapid prototyping is covering this, but on the other hand, you're not sticking with the one idea and starting to build it and without any validation. So you have a lot of chances to iterate, to experiment with different ideas and different solutions for the same problem, which is, I think, great. And also, this enables discussions, this enables brainstorming sessions, and also, brings great engagement. I really love this part because it's really not sitting in a black box and designing, but it's also about collaboration, when you can get a lot of ideas, when you can get a lot of feedback, even from inside and from your team, from your stakeholders, and you can hear, based on that, you can get a lot of creativity and a lot of insights and a lot of inspiration. Better communication. This is really, as I mentioned, a good communication activity inside your team. And you can get buy-in with your stakeholders. You can invite them, and this is really good team activity. Cost saving, of course. So this is what I mentioned a lot of times, and time saving and money saving. So this is if someone asks you, hey, why do we have to incorporate rapid prototyping into our process? I think, especially if it is assessed by stakeholders, the first thing you have to say is, hey, so it's really time saving. It's really cost saving. It reduces the risk of building something that doesn't work, doesn't meet user needs, doesn't in any way solve their problems. You can learn about this very early, and you can identify the potential issues. And I'm not saying not only saying about just the idea that doesn't work, but also a lot of usability issues and a lot of areas that could be improved just by doing this iteratively. When talking about prototypes, the first thing I believe everyone has a lot of conversations and a lot of I think in every place and in every book, when it is talking about prototyping, fidelity comes in. And again, so it might bring some confusion sometimes, but it's not really hard to figure that out. So yeah, I believe let me share with you different types of fidelity and why they are important. So as you might know, prototypes can take many forms, from sketches on paper to an interactive prototype, and they can look like real products. So they can even have some coding in it if you choose the right tools for that. And fidelities pretty much refer on how closely a prototype resembles the final design. This is what we really want to show. If we come to fidelity, I know that you might expect me to say, okay, high, middle, and low fidelity. But let's start from something a bit high level and talk about different types of fidelities. First comes visual fidelity. It's more about how real does it look. So if we take, for example, sketches and maybe paper prototypes, right? So they are interactive. They could be interactive. So it's still prototype, but how real it is and what feedback would you get from that? So it's really critical aspect to get the feedback. So if the visual fidelity is low, then the feedback is more on the context. So you can't validate a lot of stuff with this. On the other hand, if the visual fidelity is high, then you can get more precise feedback and also some feedback on visual elements. So there are some times when we should intentionally keep visual fidelity low to get the specific feedback. For example, so here is a visual. So what we can do with the left one and with the right one. So we might test something, but we can't expect our users to give us a lot of feedback about some wireframes that do not have any copy, that do not show any visuals. On the other hand, so with the visuals and a copy, we can expect a lot. We have functional fidelity next, which is about interaction. How interactive is the prototype, and how real does it feel? You might also experience this if you have gone through usability testings, for example, when you try to click on elements, but they are not clickable. So, the prototype is limited with some paths that you want to validate. So this measures how closely a prototype's interactions and behaviors match those of the final product. So how they are close to the final product. And So this one could be a paper prototype, and it is clickable, but again, so it's iterative, but you can't test a lot of stuff with this, and you might be limited with just some actions. So when you have a lot of options, and then you just put the flow on just one of them. We have content fidelity, which comes next. And I believe, especially when just starting, and I did it myself for a long time, and we were just putting this lorem ipsum stuff on everything that we don't know what to put, and we think that, okay, I'm just creating a mock-up, and why do I need to have the real copy? But it is the most crucial thing. I mean, the content, the visuals, the images. So this is really very, very, very important. So, and content fidelity refers to accuracy and completeness of the product, because anyone who sees some default text or something repeating would not have the same feedback as if you have the complete copy with the exact call to actions, for example. And content fidelity can affect the user experience, as incomplete or inaccurate content can confuse a lot. So let's use real content instead, and it doesn't matter what fidelity you are going to create the mocha suite. Whenever you have some copy on your prototype, I would recommend you to go with the real content. Okay, so now coming to, I think, to what is most probably very well known to all of you, is the slow, medium, and high fidelities. And let's just start with the fact that when we decide which fidelity to go with, it very much depends on the need you have. So where are you in the process? What are your goals? What are your testing? And what process step are you in? So there is no right and wrong answer saying, hey, never do low fidelity in this case, or hey, always do high fidelity. Let's quickly go to some pros and cons of each fidelity type, and see how they work. We'll start from low fidelity, and as an example, a paper prototype. By the way, if you haven't created a paper prototype, which is interactive, I absolutely recommend you to do it, because this is really fun. And this is a great opportunity to collaborate with your team. And I would say this is also a great team activity. So let's go to pros of low fidelity. I think obviously it's quick and inexpensive. So you say you just need some paper and maybe a pen. It's easily to modify. Sometimes it might take more time if you do it on a paper rather than in Figma, but it's much easier than to change the high fidelity. It focuses on concept testing, as I said, so it's really do not distract our users with any visuals or with any content stuff, but it's more of a context testing. And as I mentioned, encourages collaboration. So some cons are lack of realism, and you might have this experience when you sketch something and then someone cannot understand what you have done and why. And you then go and create some wireframing in Figma, so it's more clear. It has limited functionality, can oversimplify complex issues because we can't go in very detail when we're doing low fidelity. And there might be, as I mentioned, risk of miscommunication because it is not very clear. Okay, coming to mid fidelity, let's imagine clickable wireframes when you are still missing some content and some finalized stuff. So they are more realistic than paper prototypes, more comprehensive, allows testing of specific iterations. So it can be, it is more easily to make it clickable, and also can be created pretty quickly, especially if you have some, let's say, design system for creating these wireframes, or you have some templates that you're using. It would be very quick to come up with a few screens. Some constraints can be time consuming, and this is pretty true because it's really very hard to not to balance between mid fidelity and not to go to make it high fidelity, because we really want to be pixel perfect, and we start thinking and overthinking and start thinking about adding a lot of features. For example, okay, let's add this, let's add the other stuff, and then at the end of the day you see that your mid fidelity becomes high fidelity very easily. And but this is not what you want to do. So just be conscious and do not jump into high fidelity by accident. So some constraints also are, they are not the final product, so they are not close to the final product, and thus it is not covering all the questions and all the spectrum that we're expecting feedback for. And they are limited with functionality still, and can be more expensive because, as I said, so you're spending more time on that. And yeah, we're coming to high fidelity, which is very in high demand. So a lot of stakeholders are, okay, we need high fidelity, and I really want to see how it looks and feels. And I can feel the pain if you have been in the situation when you are pushed to create and start with high fidelity. But whenever you're in a situation, just remember that you can bring all the benefits of the rapid prototyping and starting with low fidelity or mid fidelity, and then just bringing all the arguments why it's better to start. It's better to start with non high fidelity, but something that is more iterative and just something that you won't spend a lot of time on. Okay, so the example is interactive prototype, and the pros are, of course, it's engaging for the users, so you can see how they are interacting with pretty real and final product. We can go with complex interactions there. Testing results are going to be more accurate, and this is very close to the final, so you can cover a lot of stuff there, and you can get a lot of good feedback from the users and to your pretty final product. Some constraints, so expensive, time consuming. There is a chance that you're going to get some feedback about very specific stuff, and it is going to be very subjective, like, hey, I think this is not very prominent color, or okay, so I think this button could be with rounded corners, etc. And also, users might mistake this prototype with finished product, and their expectations could be different from if it was the final product. Okay, perfect. Yeah, let me know if you have any questions so far, and just try to remember what you have in mind, or put it in Q&A. So I have a message that says I can't find it there. I guess it shouldn't be here, but yeah, let me know if you have any questions so far, and we can continue. Okay, so I have covered pretty everything that I wanted to share with you. What I want to do is to just go with do's and don'ts, and just acknowledge what we want to do, and what not to do. Okay, so first thing first, so test prototypes with real users to gather the feedback, because just testing internally saying, hey, what do you think? Is it usable? Or could you give me feedback on how you feel about it? Do you think it's going to work? It's not a real feedback, it's not a real user. So if you want your rapid prototyping process to be iterative and to bring you value, just talk to real users. Collaborate with stakeholders and team members. So remember that it's your job as a UX designer, but on the other hand, UX is a team sport. Remember about that, and invite your team members into the session, so to the feedback session, and then just present what results you have, present what feedback you have from users, and gather insight. This is a real great opportunity to share what you have done so far, and to share the feedback that you have gathered, but also this is a really good point to collaborate with team, and also see their feedback too. This is a golden rule again. Don't get too attached to specific design solution. Sometimes we really very fast feel in love with some ideas, and we really want them to work, and it's really hard to accept that they might not work. But as a UX designers, try to manage your biases and not to get in love with your ideas, and try to iterate, because you might find a better one. This was mentioned before, so don't create high fidelity prototypes too early, because just imagine the process. I mean, you have created a pixel perfect prototype, and then you just figure out that this idea doesn't work, and then so you have to rework everything, right? Let's move forward. Another one. So rapid prototyping is not perfect prototyping. This is a really pain point for designers. Because sometimes when you and this has its roots, and when you are showing some sketches on a paper, for example, you can get very strange feedbacks about, okay, so what is it, or I don't understand, etc., etc. And we really want to look perfect in other eyes, saying, hey, I'm a UX designer, and I can present the ideas and prototype in a really good way. And then we start jumping into this cage, I would say, when we want to show what we can and our abilities. But this is not about our abilities to create pixel perfect low fidelity. It's about how quickly we can iterate. It's about how quickly we can find what works and what doesn't work, and what makes sense, and then iterate on that, and then save time, save a lot of resources, and build something that solves the user problems, because this is what we really want to do. We really want our users to have better experience, and to solve their problem. Okay, we have something in Q&A. How many people should involve in prototyping? Let's touch it right after this. I would say it would again. So there is some limitation, and it would be great to have representative from different teams. I mean, it can be customer success, for example, can product engineering, because this way you'd have very diverse feedback, which is really great. Again, so just covering and slipping to the next question. No pixel perfection. So do not think about aesthetics when you are on the lowest stages of doing this rapid prototyping. Don't begin prototype review sessions without clear guidance for feedback. This is, again, because this is also a soft skill to know how to ask for feedback. And you have to have a goal for your prototyping. And based on that, you also have to have a goal for your feedback. What type of feedback are you asking for? Are you asking for concept feedback? Are you asking for more specific feedback? Because if you don't have the clear guidance for feedback, then it would become a mess. Don't take every change or request that comes out of a prototype review as a new requirement. Just imagine the situation when you are sitting next to your laptop and then doing this prototype or doing a presentation to your team, and then everyone who is there starting to comment and just throw a lot of ideas on you. And imagine that you take everything and change everything based on that. I mean, this doesn't work in any way. So collecting feedback and analyzing it is the best you can do. Just if they requested something, if user said, "Oh, I think it would be better to have X," or I think it's not appropriate to have this. It is valuable feedback, but also keep eye on how frequently you hear that, and do not try to just do whatever they request you to do. Where you can reuse, don't reinvent the wheel. And so you might ask you, what is the best, starting with sketches on a paper or some wireframes? I would say it depends. There's a lot of stuff in UX. Imagine you have your product and you're working on your next feature, right? And you have a design system. What would be the reason not to use that, right? So reuse whatever you can. Sometimes you can go to Figma community and borrow something from them because you need a concept, and you don't need to start from scratch to come up with a prototype. It's okay to leave gaps in the journey, and as I mentioned, you can't cover everything. Include what is essential based on your goal and the scope, and test and don't prototype everything. This was covered before, but let me repeat it again. Whenever possible, include realistic content and copy imagery and data. These are essential because, as you might know, just changing a few words in your prototype might lead you to better conversion, for example, or might make this prototypes much usable. And keep it simple, be open to feedback, which is, again, very important to work on. So I guess throughout the presentation, I mentioned a lot of soft skills that you need as a UX designer to be able to go through this process of rapid prototyping, because sometimes it's really hard to keep yourself from going into high fidelity. It's really hard to collaborate. It's really hard to just accept the feedback. But again, it's very, very important. So keep it simple, be open to feedback, and use the right tools. So what I wanted to share with you today, unfortunately, we don't have this ability to go into creating stuff right away, but I would absolutely recommend you to do this exercise with your team, and I think this is really fun, and you can also just feel and experience everything that I've touched today. So this is called 8642 rapid prototyping method. I don't know whether you have heard about this or not, but this is really boosting the creativity and showcasing how this iterative process can bring you results. So the idea is the following. So you are taking you have some goals and you have the scope and you start iteration. So you have 8 minutes, and for the 8 minutes you are iterating as much as you can. Then you stop and get the feedback for 2 minutes. It can be a pair exercise. It can be a group exercise. So you can provide the feedback to each other, and then based on that feedback, you start to, and you continue to iterate for 6 minutes again, and then you stop for 2 minute feedback, and then 4 minutes for sketching again, 2 minute feedback, and the last 2 minutes to make it perfect. So it's really fun. If you have questions, please you can ask after the presentation. But I think you'd love it, and this is also a good collaboration exercise for your team. When coming to rapid prototyping tools, I mean, there are a bunch of tools, and I'm not going to do a review today. I myself am using Figma for pretty everything, but there are some tools, I guess, that you let me see. I mean, I have some missing here. Sorry for that. And I have Figma. Actor is not here, so it should be. Framer is, this is what I've been talking about, and it has some coding inside, so you can use it. But whatever tool you're using, I mean, the idea there is to be quick, iterate fast, and be able to share this with users. So if the tool covers that, then that's perfect. I think that's it from my side for today. And thank you very much for being here, as I mentioned before, so for the weekend. And I tried my best to share with you some important stuff about rapid prototyping. And I hope I could do in some limited time. And yeah, I'm looking very much for your questions.
Thank you so much, Anna. This was a really, really eye-opening session, I guess. And we have the exact amount of people with whom we started, and I would say there's just a 1% drop rate. The session was so great. I think let's start with the questions that were already there. Um,
Yep.
I First one was from Laura. I assume perfectionism would be the first enemy of rapid prototyping. What should we keep focus on when doing rapid prototyping, and what potential distractors should we not pay attention to?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned, so rapid prototyping is not a perfect prototyping. So you have to keep with the goals and just prototype enough to be able to test. This is sometimes hard to manage yourself. I mean, as I said, so you appear in this loop of making things better and better, and you think that it might not take a long time, and it might take just 5 minutes, and then you just find yourself on a high fidelity. So I would say it's about working on yourself not to go with this, and not to it's also about maybe presenting yourself as a designer. This is how I feel about. So if you haven't done something, that doesn't mean that you haven't thought about this. It doesn't mean that you don't have this in mind. It doesn't mean that you are a bad designer or you can't design it. It just means that you don't need it right now. And what I would recommend you is to, if you have some ideas connected to that, just have an idea box and put there, so you know that you're not losing them, because you are creating a lot of stuff and you could have a lot of great ideas, and just have an idea box next to you, and then whenever you come back with a feedback, you can open your idea box and see whether you can iterate on that too.
Right. Cool. How many people should be involved in prototyping, and what is the best way to test a prototype? Let's combine these two.
Yeah. Okay. So the second one is a bit broad. So what is the best way to test a prototype? I mean, you have to the best would be to know why you do this, who you're testing with, what tools are you using, and how are you incorporating the feedback. So it's not only, as I said, so we're covering rapid prototyping today, but it's not only about rapid prototyping, but also the steps that are coming before, and then the steps that are coming after. So you also have to know how to analyze the data, to incorporate it. You also have to know all the data that you have collected and analyzed about your users, pain points, behaviors. So I think just start with something. If you are asking what is the best way, just start with something. Just try to do something, and then you can always iterate on your process too, right? So it isn't going to be perfect first time you do this, but as far as you go, you would see what works for you, especially for your company and for your product, and what doesn't. So start with a simple one. And when we talk about testing, it's about usability testing, and making it right. Yeah, so how many people to involve? I guess for feedback session, it would be perfect if you have multidisciplinary team members, because they have knowledge about the users, knowledge about technology, knowledge about sales, knowledge about marketing. So, and they can bring a lot of this knowledge into one place. So you have this diverse diverse thoughts and diverse feedback.
The next one is a pretty large one. It's from Laura
Okay.
again.
Yeah, let me read it
Yeah,
aloud.
sure.
Okay, when I conduct a test on a prototype with a participant, they may offer ideas and feedback that are not part of my original questionnaire, thinking that this is required for them to ideate. In such cases, I'm torn between interrupting them and sticking to my questions, or following their ideas and gaining valuable insights outside of the scope. The question is, as a researcher, which approach should I prioritize? So again, it depends, and this cases comes a lot because, as I said, so when we are not asking the feedback in the right way, or we're not clear with the goals of the feedback, even if we are clear, there might be some participants who want to express their feelings about how they see the prototype, etc., etc. So I won't say interrupt them. So you might say that, of course, it's in iteration. So we're working on this, and thank you for your feedback. But right after that, come back to whatever you are testing. But there is a subtle balance of not missing an important information. So it's more about some gut feeling, but also some experience, I would say, when you see that they are opening a conversation that might be crucial to you. So in those cases, I would recommend to just to go to get the information you need, because that might also be some missing part of the research that you have done. Yeah, I think that's all.
Can you give us some tips for how to do the best research? I think that's another workshop altogether.
That's what I wanted to say. So that's another workshop. It depends in what are you working on, what company are you working with, what product are you working with, what is the goal of your research, right? And what methodology of research are you choosing? So this has so much differences, so I can't come up with one, but I think it's important to understand why you're doing this, what do you want to learn, and whether or not are you reaching out the right audience. And also, there are a lot of tips and tricks to do the research right, and to just get right of the biases, to get the information that is valid. I guess this is really big topic, and maybe if you have some specific topic or some specific case, I could answer that, but this is really large.
Cool. We have the last one here. What are some of the best practices for designing and testing prototypes quickly and effectively?
Um, don't inventing the wheel, I would say. So reusing is one of them,
Right.
as I mentioned. So as much as you can. And this would move you very, very fast. So in this way, you could move fast. And quick iteration inside your company is also very important. I mean, overall, throughout the UX process, it's really important to be transparent and not to get out of the track that you are going to. So always remember about what are your goals. And also have a plan. So when you are doing these iterations, just plan on what is next. So okay, I'm doing this prototype, and then the next day I would do the testings, and then the next day I would incorporate the findings, and then restart the cycle. Having a plan is great in any scenario, whether it's research, whether it's iteration, rapid prototyping. So I think when you have a plan and you plan before, it helps a lot and makes it very effective.
Great. I have one last question for you. So I saw that you have been designing for SaaS products for almost like last 5 to 10 years of your life. How is it different, and what are the hurdles that you face which are very different from designing for a B2C product? Not exactly B2C, but maybe say an edtech product or something else, because the learning curve for the SaaS product would be a little greater than say ProApp, right? So
Yeah.
how is it different?
So yeah, my experience is more in B2B than B2C.
Right.
So in B2B, the hardest I would say is to reach out to the final user.
Right.
But yeah, so that's what I really want to mention, but it's not impossible. I mean,
Right.
you have to, just as soon as you understand that you need to
Hmm.
reach out to the person who is going to use the application, not only the one who is purchasing the application,
Right. Right.
you are set. Yeah, I think that's it. And also these are complex applications.
Hmm.
So yeah, discovering how and I think this is not only for B2B but also B2C, discovering how people were doing things before you came in
Right. Right.
is crucial. Yeah. um and yeah, a lot of research, which is a bit complicated because yes, usually
Right.
there is one representative who says I know everything and let me share the experience, but this is usually not true. And so yeah, just argumenting why you need to talk to those people in a good
Right.
way.
Great. Thank you so much. I think we do not have any further questions. Um, I believe we can call it a wrap. And thank you so much, Anna, for doing this with us. I've already shared Anna's LinkedIn profile in the channel. You can follow her and connect with her and learn more from her design journey. She's a mentor, and I think that's all we need in life, a mentor to guide us through. Thank you so much. And I think we'll hope to do another workshop with you again. And yeah, definitely
Yeah,
we'll do another one. We already got the topic. What is
yeah,
the best way
absolutely.
to do it?
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for having me, and it was pleasure sharing the experience, and hope this brings some value to people who are just starting or trying to come up with a better process. Yeah, and thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. The chat section is filled with all the good words for you.
Thank you, everyone.
Sure, everyone. Have a great weekend. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Thanks.